During my 50th birthday party, my three sons unveiled a special presentation, a compilation of every major failure in my life, narrated by my ex-wife. He failed as a husband, failed as a father, and failed as a man. I left him because he couldn't satisfy me in any way. The video ended with them announcing they were legally changing their last names. Everyone laughed as I sat there in shock. I simply thanked them for coming and left. This morning, my phone wouldn't stop vibrating with desperate messages. Look, I'm not exactly a social media guy. My oldest son Salvador set up this Reddit account for me years ago, and I barely use it. But I need to get this off my chest because I'm sitting here at 5 in the morning with my phone blowing up, and I honestly don't know what to do with myself. I turned 50 last week. 50. Half a century of busting my ass, paying bills on time, and trying to be a decent guy. I've never been the type to make a big deal about birthdays, but 50 felt like something worth celebrating. You know? For context, I've been divorced from Bernice for 8 years. 19 years of marriage down the drain when she decided I wasn't exciting enough anymore. Whatever. Water under the bridge. We have 3 sons: Salvador, 29, Franklin, 26, and Damien, 23. The boys sided with her during the split. That happens, I guess. They were teenagers, and she was always the fun parent, while I was the one saying no to expensive sneakers and staying out past midnight. I tried to maintain relationships with them, but it's been difficult. Birthday texts, Christmas calls, the occasional lunch that feels like a job interview where I'm constantly failing. Anyway, Salvador called me 3 weeks ago saying they wanted to throw me a party for the big 5-0. Surprised the hell out of me. I figured maybe turning 50 made them realize I wasn't going to be around forever. Maybe this was our chance to finally repair things. Stupid me got my hopes up. I even bought a new shirt. Pathetic, right? The party was at this local brewery taproom that Franklin's friend manages. About 30 people showed up. Some old buddies from my neighborhood, a few cousins, some co-workers, and of course, my sons and their friends. Bernice came too, which should have been my first warning sign, but I thought maybe she was being civil for the boys' sake. I was actually having an okay time for the first hour. Some decent food, couple beers. People seemed genuinely happy to see me. The whole time, I kept thinking how nice it was to be wrong for once about my sons, that they actually did care. Here's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't feel like a punch to the gut. It's more like suddenly realizing you've been standing on quicksand for years. Around 8 o'clock, Salvador tapped his glass and said they had a special presentation for the lights dimmed, and they pulled down this portable projector screen. I was expecting maybe some old photos, you know, the kind of cheesy slideshow people do at milestone birthdays. What I got instead was a 20 compilation titled, The Failures of Eugene Wilson, A Lifetime of Disappointment. Yeah, really. With my ex-wife narrating the whole thing like some kind of documentary voiceover. Eugene Wilson, failed husband, failed father, failed man, complete with photos of every mistake I've ever made, pictures of the used car I bought that broke down after 3 months, the time I got passed over for promotion, the camping trip where it rained the whole time, the half-finished deck I never completed because I was working 60-hour weeks. But that wasn't even the worst part. Bernice went into explicit detail about our intimate life in front of everyone I know, about how I couldn't satisfy her needs, and how that was the real reason she left, how she'd been faking it for years. People were laughing, actually laughing, at my birthday party, about my performance issues. It ended with this scripted little speech from all 3 boys about how they were officially filing paperwork to change their last names to Bernice's maiden name, Garza. Salvador actually said, and I remember this word for word, "We'd rather have no father than one who never showed up when it mattered." I sat there, completely frozen. The room was half uncomfortable silence, half nervous laughter. Everyone looking at me, waiting for me to either break down or blow up. I've spent my whole life being the guy who doesn't make a scene, so I didn't. I stood up, thanked everyone for coming, and walked out. Got in my car, drove home, sat in my empty house, and stared at the wall until sunrise. That was Saturday night. It's now Thursday morning. My phone hasn't stopped vibrating since Monday. Turns out, they need my signature on some forms for their precious name change. All 3 of them plus Bernice calling, texting, messaging me on Facebook. Even had Salvador's wife Erica call me pretending to be concerned about my emotional state when I know damn well she just wants me to sign those papers. Franklin left this voice message yesterday saying I was being childish by ignoring them. Childish? I'm childish for not immediately helping the kids who publicly humiliated me? The same kid who called me at 2 in the morning last year begging for money because he owed some guys for a poker game? The one I bailed out without asking questions? That's the kid calling me childish? Maybe they're right. Maybe I was a terrible father. I wasn't perfect. Worked too many hours, missed some games. But I paid for everything. Every doctor visit, every pair of shoes, every college application fee. I helped Salvador with a down payment on his house when Bernice said she couldn't. I've been paying Damien's tuition even though the divorce settlement didn't require it past 21. I've been there with my wallet open every single time they needed something, but apparently that means nothing. Reddit? I don't know what I'm asking for here. I guess I just needed to tell someone. The thing is, I'm not just hurt, I'm angry. For 8 years, I've been taking their crap, trying to make peace, swallowing my pride. For what? So they could ambush me in front of everyone I know? My buddy Vic says I should just sign the papers and be done with them. Cut them loose, he says. My cousin thinks I should try to talk to them, figure out where all this hate came from. But honestly, I don't feel like doing either. I've spent 50 years being the reasonable, the one who compromises, the one who forgives, and what has it gotten me? A highlight reel of my failures narrated by the woman who threw away our marriage for her CrossFit instructor. Oh, yeah, forgot to mention that little detail earlier. So here I sit, phone buzzing again. It's Damien this time, probably calling to tell me what a disappointment I am for not immediately helping them erase the last connection they have to me. They think I'm weak, that I'll cave like I always do. But something snapped in me when I walked out of that brewery. Something changed. They don't know what I know about each of them. They have no idea who they're dealing with now. I'm turning my phone off and taking a drive. I need to think, because for the first time in my life, I'm not gonna do what's expected of me. Update 1. First off, holy crap, I never expected my last post to blow up like that. Over 2,000 comments? My notifications were going crazy for days. Thanks to everyone who sent supportive messages and advice. Sorry, I couldn't respond to all of them. My old Samsung can barely handle opening the Reddit app without overheating. Look. It's been almost 3 weeks since that disaster of a birthday party. A lot of you were asking if I was okay or if I'd talked to my sons yet. The answer is complicated. I haven't been sitting around crying into my cereal every morning, if that's what you're wondering. I've been planning. For the first week after the party, I went completely dark, turned my phone off, took some personal days from work, and just sat in my house thinking. I needed to get my head straight before making any moves. I'm not the impulsive type. Never have been. That's probably what Bernice meant when she called me boring in front of everyone. Whatever. Here's the thing about my sons that I didn't fully explain in my last post. Despite all their big talk about me being a failure and a disappointment, all 3 of them have been financially dependent on me in ways their mother doesn't even know about. Salvador, my oldest, the one who organized that whole slideshow humiliation. I've been making half his mortgage payments for the last 3 years, quietly transferring money to his account every month because he and his wife, Erica, bought way more house than they could afford in that fancy subdivision. Salvador told Bernice, I just helped with the down payment, but nope, I've been paying $1,200 every single month so they could keep their granite countertops and 3-car garage. Franklin has a gambling problem, online poker mostly, but he's branched out to sports betting apps too. His fiancée, Malia, has no idea. I've bailed him out 4 times in the last 2 years when he got in too deep. Last time was about $8,000, not small change for a guy like me who's been brown bagging lunch for 30 years. And Damien, my youngest, his college tuition doesn't pay itself. Bernice promised to handle it in the divorce, but suddenly had cash flow problems when the time came. So guess who's been silently paying for his classes? Not to mention the rent on his apartment since he couldn't balance school and full-time work. After sitting with my thoughts for a week, I finally started answering their calls. I played it exactly how they expected. The defeated dad, voice all shaky, talking about how I just want to understand where I went wrong and still love them no matter what. Basically, I fed them exactly the pathetic reaction they were hoping for. They ate it up. I suggested we have dinner, just the family, to work through things and find closure. They agreed so fast, it was almost funny. Salvador picked this overpriced Italian place near his house, probably assuming I'd pick up the check like always. The dinner was something else. I showed up looking like hell on purpose. Didn't shave for days, wore an old wrinkled shirt, the whole sad sack, and wow. You should have seen how smug they all looked. Bernice kept giving me these fake sympathy glances while the boys took turns explaining why they had to do what they did at the party. How it was for my own good so I could finally face reality. Franklin actually had the nerve to say he was proud of me for finally taking responsibility by agreeing to sign their name change paperwork. Like, he was the parent and I was the child. The whole time I just nodded and looked at my plate, occasionally wiping my eyes like I was holding back tears. Inside though, I was making mental notes of everything they said. Every cruel comment, every condescending look, every time Bernice laughed a little too loud at their jokes at my expense. The whole dinner, not one of them asked how I was actually feeling. Not one of them showed any real remorse. They were just there to collect my signature and twist the knife a little deeper. So I gave them what they wanted, signed the papers right there at the table, told them I understood why they didn't want my name any, that I was sorry for being such a disappointment. The second I got home that night, I logged into my banking app and set everything in motion. First, I canceled all automatic transfers to Salvador's account. Then I sent an email to my bank stopping payment on the check I'd written for Damien's tuition this semester. Finally, I blocked Franklin's number so when his next gambling crisis hits, he'll be on his own. Then I did something I probably should have done years ago. I went through my email and found all the messages from Franklin asking for money to cover his gambling, screenshots of his betting accounts, Venmo transfers labeled poker bailout. I put everything into a folder, created a new email address, and sent it all to Malaya with the subject line, "What your fiancé isn't telling you." That was 3 days ago. Since then, my quiet little life has turned into something straight out of a reality show. Salvador called 13 times yesterday after his mortgage payment bounced, left a voicemail screaming about how their bank sent a notice, and his credit score is going to be destroyed. Apparently, Erica is absolutely losing it because they're hosting her family reunion next month and now might lose the house. Not my problem. Damien got an email from his university about his unpaid tuition and outstanding balance. He's been blowing up my phone with texts alternating between guilt trips and threats. Sorry, kid, should have thought about that before you helped make a video calling me a failure in front of all my friends. But the real fireworks? Franklin and Malia. Holy shit. She came over to my house yesterday crying, showing me all the emails, asked if they were real. I didn't have to lie, just nodded. Apparently she's called off the engagement and moved back with her parents. Franklin left me this unhinged voice message at 2 a.m. calling me every name in the book, saying I've ruined his life and betrayed his trust. The irony is completely lost on him. Bernice has been texting nonstop demanding I fix this mess because the boys are in crisis. She actually wrote that I need to stop being petty. And think of the family. The audacity of this woman who narrated a highlight reel of my sexual shortcomings in front of 30 people. The thing is, Reddit, I don't feel bad, not even a little bit. For 8 years, I've been their ATM while they treated me like garbage to my face. They thought they could humiliate me, and I just take it because I always have. They were wrong. I'm not done yet either. This was just phase 1. I've got more planned. Nothing illegal or violent, just more consequences for their actions. They thought I was a doormat. I'm not. I'm the floor about to drop from beneath them. Just had to share this update because so many of you sent supportive messages. Feels good to finally stand up for myself at 50. Guess you can teach an old dog new tricks after all. Finally, update. Hey, Reddit. It's been about a month since my last update, and wow, the support from you guys has been unreal. My notifications have been a dumpster fire. But in a good way, some of you sent me actual DMs with advice on how to navigate the Reddit app, which this old guy appreciates. I've been reading everything on lunch breaks at work between my cracked screen and dodgy Wi-Fi. Look, I know some of you thought I was being too harsh in my last post. That whole cutting off financial support thing got mixed reaction. One person called me a boomer revenge fantasy, which made me laugh NGL. I'm not even a boomer. I'm Gen X, but whatever. Some of you were cheering me on. Others thought I should take the high road. But here's the thing about taking the high road. Sometimes it just gives people a better angle to spit on you. The aftermath of phase 1 was interesting. Salvador's mortgage situation got even messier. Turns out they were already behind on payments before I stopped helping. The guy has been living beyond his means for years and blaming everyone but himself. He actually showed up at my house unannounced last Wednesday with this BS story about Erica being stressed to the point of needing medication because of their financial situation. Like, that's somehow my fault? Franklin's life is an absolute shambles since Malia got those emails about his gambling. She's completely done with him, changed her relationship status on Facebook and everything, posted some cryptic quote about trusting your instincts with a bunch of red flag emoji. Franklin's been couch surfing at friends' places and drunk texting me at 3 a.m. Real classy stuff like telling me I'm a pathetic old man who'll die alone. This from the guy who lost $25,000 on fantasy football. Damien got put on academic probation because he couldn't register for classes with his unpaid balance. He actually had the nerve to email my boss trying to get me in trouble, sent some rambling message about how I was mentally unstable and neglecting family obligation. Thankfully, my boss has known me for 15 years and just forwarded it to me with eyes as the only comment. Bernice has been on a full PR campaign with extended family and mutual friends. Been telling everyone I'm having a late life crisis, and they're all worried about my mental health. Classic Bernice move. When she can't control you, she tries to control how others see you. The constant barrage of calls, texts, and social media messages was getting old. So I decided it was time for phase 2, the family meeting. I sent them all the same text last Sunday, said I wanted to make things right and find a solution that works for everyone, asked them to come to my house the following Saturday at noon, told them to come hungry because I'd order food. The speed at which they all agreed was telling. Yesterday was Saturday. I spent the morning cleaning up, not because I cared what they thought of my house, but because it helped keep my mind clear. Put fresh sheets on the guest bed, even though nobody was staying over. Old habits die hard, I guess. I ordered a ridiculous amount of food from that Chinese place near the highway. All their favorites, Salvador's beef and broccoli, Franklin's General Tso's, Damien's crab rangoon, and even Bernice's favorite hot and sour soup, cost me almost $100 with delivery fees and tip, worth every penny for what was about to happen. They all arrived within 10 minutes of each other. Bernice was first, 20 minutes early as usual, probably hoping to get me alone. The boys showed up right at noon. The tension in my living room was thick enough to cut with a knife. They all looked terrible, TBH. Salvador had dark circles under his eyes. Franklin clearly hadn't shaved in days, and Damien looked like he'd lost weight. Bernice was put together as always, but I could see the strain around her eyes. I played the gracious host, handed out plates, served drinks, made small talk about the weather. They were all clearly impatient, waiting for me to bring up money. Franklin kept checking his phone every 30 seconds. Salvador was doing that thing where he taps his foot when he's anxious. Damien could barely make eye contact. Once everyone had food, I said I had a special presentation I wanted to share with them. The look that passed between them was priceless. This mix of confusion and worry. I pulled out my laptop and connected it to the TV with that HDMI cable I can never figure out on the first try. Then I hit play. It was their birthday presentation to me. The whole humiliating video they'd shown everyone at my party. I'd asked Salvador's friend who ran the brewery to send me a copy claiming I wanted it for memories. The audio was crystal clear. Bernice's narration about my failures, the boys' scripted speech about changing their names, the audience laughter, all of it. I didn't say a word. Just let it play. All 16 minutes and 22 seconds of it. Watched their faces the whole time. When it ended, I turned on the lights and pulled out 4 manila folders I'd prepared, handed one to each of them with their names written on the tabs. Old school, I know. But there's something about physical paper that hits different than a bunch of emails. Salvador opened his first. Inside was a complete record of every mortgage payment I'd made for him over the past 3 years, $43,200 total, along with a formal letter stating, I would not be seeking repayment, but would also never provide financial assistance again. Franklin's folder contained printouts of all his gambling transactions I'd covered, screenshots of his DraftKings account, his online poker losses, the desperate texts asking for bailouts. Also included was a confirmation that I'd enrolled him in a free online gambling addiction program. He just needed to show up. His choice. Damien's folder had copies of his tuition payments for the past 2 years, plus a letter explaining I'd paid off his remaining balance for this semester, my last financial contribution to his education. I may be angry, but I wasn't going to torpedo his entire future. Bernice's folder was the kicker. Photos of her with her CrossFit instructor from before our divorce, time-stamped. The ones I never used in court because I didn't want to put the kids through an uglier divorce than necessary. The ones that proved she was the one who broke our vows first, not me. While they sat there flipping through their personalized evidence packages, I calmly explained that I'd also sold the house I inherited from my parents, the one they'd all assumed they would get someday, signed the papers last week, got a decent price in this market, then I pulled out one last document, my official name change paperwork. Yep, if they didn't want my last name anymore, I decided I didn't either. Changed it to my mother's maiden name, effective immediately. The silence in that room was something else. Salvador started trying to explain how the video was just a joke that went too far. Franklin kept saying they were just trying to motivate me to do better. Damien actually started crying, which nearly broke me. Nearly. Bernice tried a different approach, started talking about how we could work through this as a family and how everyone makes mistakes. She actually reached for my hand across the table. I moved it away. I told them they were welcome to stay and finish their food, but our business was concluded. Then I got up, grabbed my jacket, and told them to lock the door when they left. As I was walking out, Salvador asked where I was going. I told him I had a lunch date, which was true. I've been seeing this woman named Audrey for a couple weeks now. Met her in a Facebook group for hiking enthusiasts over 40. She's divorced too. Has grown kids who actually respect her. We're taking things slow. It's been 24 hours since then. My phone has been unusually quiet. Just one text from Damien asking if we could talk privately sometime. I'll probably say yes eventually. He's the youngest and most likely to have just been following his brother's lead. Reddit. I'm not saying I handled everything perfectly. I'm not saying cutting off my own sons doesn't hurt like hell. But for the first time in 8 years, I feel like I'm not just somebody's ATM or emotional punching bag. I've got a trip to Yellowstone planned next month. Always wanted to go. Never did because Bernice thought camping was beneath us. For my 50th birthday next year, I'm celebrating alone by choice, and something tells me it'll be the best damn birthday I've had in decades.